Trenton Journal is for people who won't take no for an answer. Trenton Journal is for community leaders. Trenton Journal is for people who won't settle. Trenton Journal highlights some of the positive voices in the community and fills in the information gaps through original reporting.
Welcome to Capital Conversations. I'm your host, Kenneth Miles, founder and publisher of the Trenton Journal. Each episode, we bring you discussions with change makers and stakeholders in the community. And today I have with me Esma Elhouni. Did I get it right?
Yes, you did. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Community activist, and I am so excited to sit down with you. Let the viewers out there know what organization you work with and what you do.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. Happy to be here. My name is Esma Elhouni, and I am an organizer with Resistencia in Acción, New Jersey. And we serve Mercer County. And there are several different things that we do. We're most known for rapid response or chasing ICE away, but we do more things beyond that as well. We also support immigrants in Mercer County. One of the things we do is we help day laborers organize themselves. Sometimes they don't get paid what they're supposed to because oftentimes some of them are undocumented. And so we help them advocate for themselves and organize themselves to be able to get paid like everyone else. So that's one thing we do. We also support domestic workers as well. We also support immigrants with learning English as well. So we have English classes. And then what we're most known for is, of course, rapid response, which is 3 parts. One is helping families prepare in case of a raid, because a lot happens when a raid happens, and we could discuss that in a little bit. And then also during a raid, and that's what we're most known for, where we're coming out with our red vests and we're chasing ICE away. And then the last part is the most difficult, which is helping support families after raids.
How long have you been involved with the organization?
Yeah, so last year in December, I met Resistencia. They approached me because I did some rapid response in other states, and I moved to New Jersey. And there was a raid in Princeton, New Jersey. And when I heard about that, I said, hey, I know how to respond to these because I've done that in Vermont and New Hampshire when I was there. And so we created a team and really took off, I would say, in January. So it's a reminder that raids have been happening before this administration. So it's not like this is new, but we're definitely seeing raids on steroids right now. But every administration, we've seen raids where immigrants are being picked up, abducted, and basically deported. But now we're just seeing an increase in definitely more violent ways of picking people up. But what we know is what we do works, and we want people to know their rights, and that when community comes together, we definitely can chase ICE, and we have.
How'd you get involved in this work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm an immigrant myself. I came to this country on asylum from Libya, which is in North Africa. And I guess I've been passionate about immigration. Growing up in the United States, my parents were always telling me to follow the rules and behave and don't do anything crazy. And then 9/11 happened. And it was just a real reminder that following the rules, and when I say following the rules, meaning like don't push against the grain, just do what you're supposed to be told to do, conform. And realizing that staying quiet has never saved us. I think for me, it was the Black community in Georgia, where I got to witness firsthand how they were able to call out this country in ways that I didn't think was possible while still saying this is my community. And I think they were inspiration for me, and they continuously told me this is not new, by the way. We've been dealing with this, and let us tell you what you can do because we know about this. We know about COINTEL. We've been targeted. So they really inspired me. And then I started organizing around immigration when my college, Georgia State University, would not allow undocumented students into the college. And so that's where I first civil disobedience, where I was arrested. And yeah, I've just been very passionate about immigration, but really all issues, because they're all tied, like when we're talking about racism, this country was founded on colonialism, right? And so we never made those wrongs right. And so, of course, we're still going to be suffering from that. And it's always a different group. But we're never going to stop it unless we all realize that we're all being harmed by it, and that we all need to come together and say, no, not under our watch. If our government officials won't stop this, we will.
So some people who have seen videos of ICE coming into communities in Trenton, they are for it. They're like, they're following the law. They're doing what they're supposed to do. What do you say to that?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. That is an important question. I think it's important to remind viewers that being in this country undocumented is a civil offense. It is not a criminal offense. And it's important to know that. And it's the reason why when undocumented neighbors and community members get abducted, they're not given a lawyer. The ways that, if you're arrested by a police officer, you have a right to a lawyer, right? Because it's a civil offense. And so that's really important to know. The other thing is the majority of people that come to this country come through legal avenues, right? And they become undocumented through time, whether it's language access, not being able to understand the mail that comes to them, whether it's the process, the bureaucratic process, and then sometimes there's just really no line for people. And so when I hear people say they should just come the right way, I think it's incredibly arrogant. And not to say that those people are arrogant. I think there's a lot of stereotypes and misinformation out there that they're buying into. And but I do believe that it's important that people educate themselves and know that the immigrant community contributes more than $100 billion every single year in taxes alone. Imagine if we're not doing that. And the reason why we know that, because some people will ask me, well, how do we know? How do you know that they don't have Social Security numbers? We know it, and we know it because we have ITIN numbers that Internal Revenue, the IRS, created to ensure that undocumented people are still paying into a system. The same system that they're not benefiting from, because they're paying into a system where they can never receive Medicaid, they can never receive Social Security. So this idea that people are breaking the law and therefore need to be punished is really absolutely false. And it's really important that people know that everyone has a right to be here. And when you see people who are undocumented, they're just like you and I. And I think I can share with my viewers, I think you and I would agree that if anything happened to your family, or if your family was unsafe, would you continue to stay where you are, or would you move so that your family could be safe? I'm sure people would move. What would you do?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely move, right?
Right. And that's what people are doing. People are leaving countries where it's oftentimes our policies, our foreign policies, that make it incredibly difficult for them to live in their own countries.
Can you speak to what's going on within immigrant communities? Are children not going to school? Are people in hiding? Can you speak to that? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there's a lot of fear.
There is a lot of fear. And especially now when people are watching ICE agents in bright daylight, stopping cars, pulling people out of their cars and taking them away, right? And so if you ask store owners in Trenton, they've literally told us our business has gone down. People are afraid to come out, right? So people are scared to take their kids to school. Just yesterday in Heightstown, there was a father who took his children to the bus stop, and Immigration Customs Enforcement picked him up, taking kids to a bus stop. And the wife only knew because neighbors told her, hey, they just came and just took your husband away. And she was, like, we get the calls, you hear the stories, but we get to hear the calls, we see the tears in a mother's eyes who's just like, well, I can't pay my bill right now. Who's going to take my kids to the doctor because I can't drive? He was our breadwinner. And so now we have to figure out the community members, how are we going to support someone who they were doing just fine. They had a breadwinner, he was taking care of his family, and now there's a broken family, and who knows if he'll win his case or not in front of a judge. He'll most likely be deported, as the majority of immigrants who are abducted by ICE are.
What is that process like? They're taken in custody. How long are they held? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I can only speak to what I know because with Resistencia, I lead the rapid response team, and then we have our family support team who would better be able to answer your questions. But what I can tell you is when someone is abducted, the first question we get is, well, where are they? Are they going to be let go? Can you help us? And that's where we try to locate their family members. And so we use a locator. And usually within 24 hours, they'll be able to get a phone call from that family member letting them know where they are. Oftentimes the conditions are incredibly hard in jails. Sometimes they're sleeping on floors. They're not given meals hours on end. We believe that this is done intentionally so that immigrants will actually choose to self-deport and not go through the process where they're standing before a judge. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes they're held for months on end in a cage where, we've heard complaints that it's super hard to shower because as soon as they turn the water on, it's super hot. So they have to jump from shower to shower to be able to complete a full shower, right? The food, they're not giving them food on all times, and it's horrible food. They're not allowing their family members to visit. So we believe that the conditions that immigrants are facing in detention is intentional to try to get them to sign papers so that they can self-deport rather than continue to stay in a cage.
What would you say about ICE raids in New Jersey? They are happening.
Oh, absolutely.
But I was told that after November, it's going to increase. Have you heard that?
I have
after
heard
the
that.
Election.
It's interesting. There's this theory now that raids aren't happening in New Jersey. And because of the nature of our work, because we have a hotline, we get several calls a week. We had a raid happen this morning on Hudson and Mott where they stopped a car and forced someone out of their car. So we see a lot of raids. It is a possibility that after the elections that we'll see an uptake. The difference between what we're seeing in New Jersey and what we're seeing in Chicago or Portland, for example, is that it seems like in other states, ICE is almost intentionally open about what they're doing. And I think from the way we've been responding, every time we show up, they leave. So there's something else going on in New Jersey where it's almost like they don't want attention and they don't want cameras on what they're doing thus far. And there's a theory that because we have a governor, a gubernatorial race, that they're not trying to be so open because it's incredibly unpopular to pull a mother from her child on camera. And so people would most likely not vote for someone who's in favor of that. And we know the Republican is. By the way, the Democrat isn't that great, but she hasn't come out like the Republican and said he's for all Trump's policies. And also we're nonpartisan. We're just sharing information. That's all we're doing here. But yeah, it is possible that after the November election that we'll see an uptake. But I want people to know there are rights and there's a Constitution, and that Constitution is supposed to protect people. And if people know their rights, that is a form of protection. And if we are out with our community members, that's another form of protection. So despite what happens, there is a way to fight back. And we see that, and that's why we're hopeful. It's easy to lose hope when you're seeing all these, raids and people are being picked up and you're hearing all these stories. But we have plenty of stories of actually chasing them away because community has come out. And we've told people their rights, and we've told people, do not open the door. They don't have a judicial warrant. Do not open your cars. So it works.
How do you fight disinformation? Because I'm sure that causes a lot of confusion within the community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. when you have people in uniform that look like police officers and they're telling you open your car door and you think you have to listen to officers. I mean, it's what happened this morning, right? Somebody was told to get out of their car and he did the right thing and he didn't for a good 15 minutes. And then they said they're going to break his car window. They said they were going to break his car window. Can they break his car window? Absolutely not. They don't have a judicial warrant. But with that threat, he opened his door and he was abducted. And one of our rapid responders got there once he was abducted, so it was too late. Had we gotten there beforehand, we believe we could have continued to tell the gentleman not to get out of his car and continue to inform the neighbors to come out and chase him away like we've done other times.
So could you describe your job, the job of a rapid responder?
Yeah, a rapid responder, all of us can be rapid responders, it's just community defense. And so as rapid responders, we come out, we have our phones, and we want to document what they are doing. And then we're also letting people know their rights. So Immigration Customs Enforcement has a problem. And their problem is they can't abduct people without a judicial warrant. And usually 99% of the time, they don't have a judicial warrant. And if you remember what we talked about earlier, being in this country without documentation is what did we say? Is it
civil?
Civil. It's a civil offense. And because it's a civil offense, no judge is going to sign right, a piece of paper because it's not a criminal offense to be here undocumented. That's why we say 99% of the time, Immigration Customs Enforcement is not going to have a judicial warrant. What they do often have is a piece of paper, which is called an administrative warrant. Don't worry about the name. Just know it's not signed by a judge. So if they're handing you a piece of paper, you want to go straight to the signature and you want to make sure it actually says judge. Otherwise, that's not a judicial warrant, right? Make sure it's signed. But what was I talking about?
You was talking, I asked you about
the misinformation. Yeah,
Yep.
That's right. And we talked about ICE having a problem that they're needing to get into these private spaces that they don't have access to because they don't have a judicial warrant. And so what they're doing is lying. And there's nothing that stops them from lying. But we're not allowed to lie to them. And so if we know our rights, we would know that if somebody comes to our door and we don't know who that person is, because now they're coming ununiformed, right? Just coming in regular clothes. They're in New Jersey, they've never come in cars that say Immigration Customs Enforcement. It's always unmarked cars. And then inside their car, they're usually vested, and sometimes they're in plain clothes with their faces covered, etc. But what we tell people is do not open that door. And if they say, because they can lie and say they're police, they're allowed to do that. But you won't open the door. Instead, you'll ask them ask them for a judicial warrant, which they won't have, but they might have that piece of paper we talked about called an administrative warrant. You ask them to take that paper and slip it under the closed door, and then you want to see if it's signed by a judge, and it won't be because, again, 99% of the time it's going to be just an administrative warrant, and you're just going to close it, slip it back, and say, hey, this is not a judicial warrant. Come back when you can get a judicial warrant. So they're going to say, we're not leaving. We're going to break down your door. They can't. We're going to stay here until you come out. We can come and, videotape them, etc. if they do. So it's important that people know their rights and that they're not entitled to your private spaces. The only way that they can get into our private spaces is that judicial warrant and permission. And they're trying to get permission because they don't have a judicial warrant.
I'm listening to you, so poised and well-spoken, right? But I saw a video of you. Wasn't it in August?
Yes.
Was it in August?
21st, I believe.
Screaming at the top of your lungs, don't come outside, ICE is here. And you got arrested.
That's right.
So what was that like for you?
That was hard. I'm sure you.
That's the first time I saw you. I was just like, this is a badass out here, right?
I appreciate that. I think my first instinct, we do training, so all of our 90 rapid responders are all trained to be ready to videotape, to be ready to tell our community members their rights. And you could see I'm pulling on that, the training, but also my instinct to protect. So I know from our training, it's like, all right, we got to let people know their rights. So immediately I'm like, do not open the door unless they have a judicial warrant. And I knew they didn't have a judicial warrant. Do you know why I knew they didn't have a judicial warrant?
Why?
Because they were outside and they've been outside and they were not in the house. And so to me, if they had a judicial warrant, there's no doubt they would have broken down that door immediately to get whoever they needed to, right? But they were waiting outside. They did not have a judicial warrant, and they were lying to the family, telling them to come out in all the different ways that they do, right?
Who are they looking for? Like, are they targeting certain areas? Are these criminals that they're looking for? Like, what's because I'm seeing narratives in the media, and if you can clarify,
great question.
Like, what's going on?
Thank you. And that is such an important question. So there's different ways that they target people. And with this new administration, the protections that we once were afforded, which is when we do our taxes and we do have an ITIN number and we're filing taxes, that is not supposed to go to Immigration Customs Enforcement. But under this new administration, all these protections that we once had, which were like barriers to our personal information and ICE, are now removed. And so we are trying to still figure out how they are specifically targeting undocumented people, because they're not, the narrative is they're targeting criminals, but we know for sure that the people that they've picked up are not criminals, but they're still targeting undocumented people. So what we believe is happening is that through the erosion of our protections, our private information, they are able to now have access to who is documented and who's undocumented. And what we know is today, the people who are in detention centers, the majority of those people have no criminal record. And the 30% who do, it's traffic violations. So it's like really sad when we're thinking about what we're classifying as criminal. And I'd like to remind people that if, even though we know for a fact that the majority of people who are undocumented have never committed a crime, and even the 30% who have done, who have some kind of crime, it's a petty, right, offense. I want to remind people that if we as a country don't defend people who have criminal records, there are human rights. And that's why we also have a police and prison abolition framework, because it's really important. If we don't defend the rights of everyone in this country, including people who have records, we're next. There's going to be erosion of all our rights. And so I think it's really important that we don't buy into the narrative of, if they're criminals, go ahead and send them away. Well, whatever happened to due process? We have examples of a few times where there were judicial warrants. And that just means a judge signed a piece of paper that said, go ahead and check into this because maybe there's something going on. The 3 times that we've witnessed there was a judicial warrant and there were immigrants involved, the judge, once they went to trial, the judge dismissed their cases, found that they were not guilty. And guess what happened to them? They were deported still. So immigrants are not afforded due process. Found innocent, but just because there was a charge against them, which later was found not to be true, they were in a system where they just handed them to ICE, and ICE was like, well, too bad. They're in our jurisdiction now, and they deported them. So I think it's really important to not buy into this narrative that, if they're criminals, just send them away. We don't. There is due process that we all have to honor and that we all need to defend. And if we go that route and say, if they have a criminal record, etc., deport them, then we are eroding all of our rights. And we're talking about oftentimes people who've done things many years ago. Like, I'll give you an example. There was a family that we are supporting, and once upon a time, the wife and the husband got into an altercation, and they were yelling loudly. None of them called the police, but guess what happened? A neighbor called the police because they heard yelling, and they took the husband in, And so he had a record. And again, no physical violence, but there was a lot of yelling. But because there's now a record of a dispute, they went later on, much later on, went and ICE came and abducted her husband. Now this woman has to support 2 kids. She just had a baby, right? And has to figure out how to live her life here because she's not going back to her country, right? So I think it's really important for us to open our eyes and know that, yes, the majority of people who are in detention centers have no criminal record. But even for those 30% who do, we got to fight hard. There's a constitution. There are rights for every single person. And if we're not willing to stand up for the least of us, the ones that society throws away, then they're going to come after us eventually too. And our rights are also going to be eroded.
You recently spoke at City Council. What was that like?
Yeah, thank you. The reason why I spoke at City Council is when there was a raid, in that same video that you saw, and then there was another time after, Immigration Customs Enforcement called police. So we were so effective that letting community members know their rights, that they needed us out of their hair. And the first group of people they thought to call were the police, and the police department did come. And if you saw the video, you can see me asking him, why are you here? And he said, well, they called us. We need to protect them. And I was taken aback. You need to protect ICE, not the family? There's no judicial warrant. I said, ask them for a judicial warrant. And so what we wanted was accountability from the police department. There was another incident, and both incidents, the same police officer was involved. And we don't want to make it about a police officer. We want to make it about the fact that we need to stop using our tax dollars, and we need to stop using police officers to aid and abet ICE. Because what they did was they created a perimeter, which is a safe space for ICE, and they moved it down 2 to 3 houses down so that nobody can interrupt them, according to them, because they might get a judicial warrant. Maybe they're trying to get that judicial warrant, which is absolutely crazy for a police department to do. And to allow them to continue to terrorize a family and continue to try to get them out of their personal space without a judicial warrant. And so what was it like? I was angry. You saw me in the video. I was angry. I got to speak to the police department there, and I said, what are you doing? You should be asking them for a warrant. Why are you moving us away? And then I was arrested. How
long were you in jail?
Not long. But what I do find interesting is they didn't drop my charges. If they did apologize, the mayor came out, Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman came out, city council members came out, basically condemning ICE. They didn't have a judicial warrant, sometimes supporting us in public as well, saying, good for you, letting people know. But my trial is November 17, my court date. And if they wanted to, the police chief can easily say, drop her charges, but he didn't. So for us, when we see the Trenton police, it does not mean safety. It means they could still be assisting ICE until there's accountability, until it's very clear that they won't do that.
And how can people reach you?
Yeah, so if people think they see ICE, and again, they come in unmarked cars, but if you see vests or people covering their faces, or if you just want us to check it out, you can call our hotline, which is 24/7, and we have a bilingual operator. And the telephone number is 640-466-2386. You can follow us on Facebook, Resistencia en Acción New Jersey. And yeah, we're happy to support community members.
I appreciate that. Before you go,
Yes.
I have to ask you this question.
Yes.
So you said that you have a bilingual staff as well, right?
Yes.
Is that Spanish?
Right, Spanish and English. But on our board, we also have someone who's Haitian, and she's our language interpreter. So if that's needed as well, we can provide that. And I speak Arabic, so
Because Trenton is very diverse. So
it
I was
is
just
very
wondering,
diverse. And the people that are being targeted are majority Latino, and let's not forget also the Haitian community. And there was a Haitian person that was abducted. So when we're talking about this being targeted, I want to really just point out it's very racist in nature, because people are literally being stopped in their cars, just driving to work, just being stopped in the front, in the back, and then being asked to get out, and then they're abducting them. So it's definitely a form of racism.
Where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here?
I know that's a broad question, but...
Yeah. I'm one to believe in the power of the people. And if we say not on our watch, and we really truly believe that, then we got to follow it with actions. And we have to be out there. You saw us on the streets facing ICE, but you also saw us at the city council, right? So we do believe in the power of the people, grassroots organizing, because that's what we do, and also the power of government to be used for good. We see government not being used for good on the federal level, but it's possible for government to work for people. And so as organizers, we need to demand that.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.